Hey everyone, Joe here. This is another part of a longer discussion with Johannes from Aligned Games. The topic here is art style, and some of the pushback I've received on it, as well as how you should approach game development if you have an art background or a programming background more generally. Part 1 is linked on the screen and in the description if you want to start from the beginning.
Am I correct in saying that you come from a programming background, right? So,
Yes.
Okay. So the next point is, art background versus programming background and what kind of game you should make with that background. But I think we can encapsulate this point into the next one, which is how much visuals matter. So you obviously chose a low poly style for your game. So I didn't coin this, but I like to use the term polygonal. That's the sort of look that you have decided to go with for a varying amount of reasons. Some of them obvious. Complexity, time to do the work, performance, all of that kind of stuff. But basically just tell us a little bit about why you chose the art style that you did. And, being a programmer, is it easier for someone to do a style that would be considered more simple, but that you can make look really good through some basic tools? Just basic post-processing can help a lot with polygonal art. And how much do you think it's going to matter ultimately that you went with this style?
I think it's going to matter a lot in some maybe not obvious ways. I did get some pushback on the art style in Devlog 5. So some people don't like it. That's fine. I think mostly I got more positive feedback than negative, I think. Some people just, they prefer a realistic art style. They're like, what they want out of a war game is they want immersion in the sense of feeling like it's real, like realistic.
Okay.
Like they want all the details on the vehicles to be correct. Like they might know a fair amount about military vehicles, and if something is used incorrectly or modeled incorrectly or functions incorrectly, it takes them out of the experience. And there are games that cater to that, where it's like the authenticity is the main feature. And I'm not doing that. Partially that's a knowledge issue. I don't know that much about, like, you have to be really detailed and into the user manuals of all these vehicles and on the War Thunder forums where they're leaking classified information and stuff like that. I'm not at that level. I'm not interested at that level.
Okay, but it's also, more than, the interest of it, it's also not practical for a single developer.
Yeah.
And this is something that anyone that is a developer listening, that you do have to think about. If you want to make a Call of Duty clone, then you should scale that down and make a Valorant clone and make it, even more basic than Valorant in terms of art, which is something that I think Joe is doing well. But just because something has a basic art style doesn't mean it doesn't have to look good. And I do think you have gotten to a place where the art really does stand out. To me, it looks really good. And I am an artist, that's I freelance as a 3D artist, and I freelanced for some big companies in the past. And I think that your game looks really good.
Thank you. I'm definitely in sort of a hodgepodge scenario right now where I don't have a consistent art style because consistency takes a lot of time to like get everything to just be where it feels like it's cohesive. So there are places where I look at the art that the game has right now, especially sort of when taken as a whole, like some of the screenshots, especially the ones I put on the Steam page, where it's like, wow, this looks really nice. But then if you like look too closely at some of the details, you're like, that doesn't look right. That doesn't look intentional. Why is that just a box? Stuff like that.
Yeah, but I mean, at this point, you can play that off as prototype art, at least.
Yeah. So I'm definitely not where I want to be yet in terms of cohesion. And as I mentioned earlier, I am starting to update some of the really early prototyping assets, like the amphibious transport vehicle is literally just like a malformed tank that I kind of squished around until it was, because I just wanted something I wanted to get working on the mechanics for amphibious vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have an amphibious vehicle model, and I didn't want to import one that wasn't mine. I didn't want to import something super high poly. So I'm like, all right, I'll just take the tank and mangle it until it's, kind of the right shape.
Okay.
But it's bad. Like, it's not a good intentional design. It's just that was what was quick and easy to do at the time. And then years later, I still have that stupid model. So I'm finally getting around to, making not the final models, but like I'm sort of taking half steps towards the finish line. We got like the cube. Like, what if everything was a cube here? The eventual future finish line, and then my first crack at the models was like, okay, they look like tanks. They don't look great, but it's fine. And then what I'm doing now is sort of the next half step in between, which is like it's a better tank. It's a better amphibious transport. It's not maybe the final one, but it's halfway between the start point and the finish point. So I kind of think of it that way. And let's see, what else about the graphic style? Some people were a little bit confused and were thinking, oh, this is a temporary art style and it's gonna go high res in the future. And that is just not what's gonna happen.
Okay.
Like, the art is going to improve, the models are going to improve, the look is going to improve, but it's not going to turn into a high res, high fidelity game. That's just not how game art works, really, or at least not how I do it.
No, I mean, if you had a gray box level where it was obvious that was gonna be changed in the future, that would be different. But once you establish an art style, usually you don't change it. You make
like if you
make
squint,
improvements, but you don't really change it.
Yeah, like if you squint right now at a screenshot of Infiniwar, you'll probably see mostly what the finished game will look like. The details will be different. The quality will improve. Quality in terms of like the craftsmanship, not in terms of the resolution, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not going to go high res. I'm not going to go high poly.
So
the quality will improve in terms of craftsmanship.
Yeah. Do you think that coming from a programming background had sort of influenced your decision in the art style direction?
100%. And some of my early devlogs talk about like my early struggles with, I was making games or following tutorials, but I was kind of using the art that was provided, and it made me really feel like, oh, this isn't my game, this is someone else's game, because the art has such an important identity for the game that I personally felt like if I wasn't making the art, or if I didn't have a big hand in what the game looked like, then I wasn't really making the game. Now, you could argue that isn't true, and it probably isn't, but that's how I felt, at least at the time when I was learning. So it was really important for me personally to get to a place where I felt like I could make something myself that I was proud of visually. And I'm not 100% there yet, but I am getting there. And I do have a programmer background. I liked art as a kid growing up. Like, I would draw. I kind of stopped that stuff a while back, and this is sort of me getting in touch again with, I would draw like, spaceships and vehicles and things like that. So this is a little bit of getting back in touch with that that side of me after a long break.
Okay.
But I think it is important for developers to lean into their strength.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of like whether they're a programmer, whether they're an artist. There's one devlog that I follow. I don't know if you've seen this one, Crimson Hollow. I can't remember the name of the developer who's making that, but I don't think, I could be wrong about this, I don't think she is or was a game developer before starting this, but she was a professional artist. So like beautiful hand-drawn everything. She's making this kind of cozy adventure game.
Okay.
And the art is just, it's gorgeous. And she's leaning heavily into that for her devlogs and her game. And I think that's important, is to kind of identify your strength. Are you on the art side? Are you on the programmer side? Or something else, music, animation, something, and lean heavily into that.
Do you
have to pick up.
Do you want to make just text-based games?
Yeah, you will need to shore up your weaknesses, like I'm having to shore up the art side. And in some ways, I'm kind of like equalizing them. I'm actually not that good of a programmer. but I'm good enough to kind of get by. So I think that is really important, is to lean into your strength. Lean into your strength more. Like if you are not an artist, being an art first game is going to be tough. If you're not a programmer and you're like, I'm going to make a game about programming where you program machines, and that's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, programming can, even for simple games, it can leak into becoming tough pretty easily. Most games now have inventory systems, but programming those are extremely hard, and I think new developers sort of get into that trap quite easily, and then you sort of do tutorials as you develop, and at some stage it just becomes, it's not feasible to release the game anymore. So you do have to, like you said, it's very important to know what you're good at and to focus on that thing. Now, someone like myself that has been doing it for a very long time sort of has a little bit of everything. I would say I'm more art oriented, but I'm also, it's important to know a lot about everything, especially with the engine that you choose, and performance and optimization of that performance is extremely important, and that's why it's important to choose a visual style that makes sense, like in your case, something that probably on the programming side, yes, but on the art side wouldn't need that much optimization.